Hello and welcome. So today we'll be playing the championship match of the Plague League Season 2. I had the highest number of total points and to qualify for this playoff. Originally it was going to be a single best-of-3 match. Instead, my opponent and I, with the blessing of the tournament organizer, decided it would be better to play something a little fancier. So we're effectively playing as a best-of-5, where each of us brings 3 different decks. When a deck loses, it is unable to be played for the remainder of the match. So when one person's decks have been each one of their decks has lost, the match is over. Additionally, there's a stipulation that the decks can only overlap by 24 cards, not including basic lands. So I had to retally things a little bit. I got to keep everything intact for the wheel. This is my traditional blue-black control deck that you'll probably recognize. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on each deck. This one was a clear choice for me to pick as part of this match, as I think it's one of the strongest decks in the format. This is the second deck that I'm choosing for this evening. This was also a fairly clear pick, although I had to modify it a little bit to make sure that it played in a very clean way and was able to actually meet the 24 overlapping cards. It previously overlapped by 32 cards between the main and the side. I'd modified this from some original lists that I'd seen, and I think that it's got a lot of punch. It is a little bit 3-drop heavy, as you can probably see. However, what its idea is that you get a lot of value and you want to be trading cards. I think a lot of control decks are ignoring that in the format, and they're trying to trade removal. You should be trading creatures, especially creatures that are gaining you value when they come into play. So this is going to be something a little more mid-rangey rather than control-esque. But I think that this is also an extremely solid deck in the format. However, that brings us to my third deck. I had a lot of trouble choosing the third deck because, honestly, I didn't really like most of the decks in the format. And it came down to a choice between green-white hexproof and green-black midrange, as I feel like those are two very strong decks that operate on a different axis than the blue-black decks that I have as my first 2 picks. I decided on green-black as I played through a league with the green-white hexproof deck, but it always felt like it was too slow and too clunky in a lot of ways. It's quite possible that it felt very different for my opponents, but I think that I'd rather be trying to do something that's somewhat like it. In this case, I'm not exactly playing hexproof, but I do have Jungleborn Pioneer, and I can give the token Menace and some other abilities if I want to. So I think that this is going to be an interesting pseudo-hexproof deck to play. I updated a deck from someone else on the server, and I'm playing some additional value creatures. I didn't really like Vicious Offering or Fungal Infection, so I cut some of those numbers, added additional lamp pads, which I think are underrated, and generally retooled a few things. I think that Wander in Death is an incredibly underrated card in this type of attrition-based deck. Well, hopefully we'll get started soon, and I think I'm going to lead off on the blue-black midrange. I think it's got the best starting matchup against any of the decks I might play against, and I know my opponent has mono-black control as one of his main strategies. So we'll see. It'll be exciting to find out exactly what happens. Okay, here we go with match number 1. My opponent and I have agreed that we are going to be publishing our decks after each round. So that'll give the loser some opportunity to understand exactly what happened and how to attack the deck. This hand is fine, especially if my opponent's on aggro. I'm on the draw. Oh, there's one additional rule that might come up, which is that the loser of the prior match gets to choose if they are playing or drawing. It looks like my opponent is... I'm going to guess that they're playing Kiln Fiend if they're playing Forgotten Caves. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so they're just going to try and blitz me out of the game here. That's fine. If they don't have another creature, I'm going to take a turn off and just kill their guy with Cruelty. But just because this deck is historically light on creatures, and one of its biggest weaknesses is that it doesn't have creatures that survive. Okay, so it looks like they've got a creature light hand, and they're just trying to get rid of some lands. That's fine. Another Burning Prophet would be something we don't want to see. This is okay. I'm just going to clear their board. I almost want to, for mana reasons, not kill it immediately, and consider other options. Because it's not going to kill me by itself, but it's so good for it to cast, for them to cast spells and get scries. I'm just really worried about Kiln Fiend, and I don't have a lot of removal. Because of that, I think I'm actually going to play Seagate Oracle. I'm going to deviate from my prior plan. And I'm going to take a Moment of Craving, because it allows me, if I draw Swamp, I can play Moment and Reaper, and I'm very worried about Kiln Fiend. So I'd like to have a card that can answer Kiln Fiend after I use my last removal spell. If they attack, I don't think I block. Okay, they're just taking the time to kill my creature, which makes sense given that they get the scry. If they don't play a creature, I will just take the time and kill theirs, because my board isn't great. Or my, where I'm at right now for these things. So they're just trying to find something that's useful. Scribe one top, okay. And I can't make great use of my mana here. I'm going to make better use of it next turn. So if that's the case, I'm just going to kill their creature, and next turn I'll probably play Cloudkin and Moment and kill their creature. But if they don't have a creature, or if they play a bad creature like that, bad means that it isn't something that I'm scared of, then I'll do some other things. Okay, so now we're going to get into a race, which is fun. So, I don't know what I've got that's really great against Kiln Fiend. Obviously, I'll bring in some more removal, and I can bring in Boot Nipper, which is the latest innovation in this deck, as a pseudo lifelink anti-hexproof card. I'm going to double block here and force a trick. There really aren't that many good tricks, and if they want to use a shock to kill a Reaper, I'm more than fine with that. I'm just going to recur the creature and then continue on. Ooh, Hungry Flames. That's a nice card. Okay, Hungry Flames is good. That's a good innovation, something that I haven't been playing but probably should be playing. I'm going to... I think I'm just going to rebuy everything here and start racing, as that seems like a great plan for me. My opponent probably has a shock or something of that nature. I'll go up to 10. My opponent can't kill me, so I'm going to start racing just in case, just to stop them from getting too many draw steps. I'm at 10, which is fairly safe, and I will try the same double block again this turn. And if they want to do something about it, they're more than welcome to. It's very much an attrition game where they can't keep up. Okay, that's pretty good for them. But they're still going to be really far behind. I think I'm just not going to care, and I'm just going to redeploy all my threats. This is why it's so difficult for this deck. I'll take the spell, just because the land doesn't really do anything for me. That it's a deck that's all about forcing through damage with creatures. It doesn't actually have that much burn, and forcing through that much damage with creatures is very difficult. Maybe this is more of a burn deck, actually, instead of a Kiln Fiend deck, but I still expect to see Kiln Fiend if I see Burning Prophet. So I'll kill their one creature that can block and go back to 10, and then just attack with everything, as they don't have a lot of stuff that actually goes to combat. Okay, Thermo Alchemist. Yeah, I will trade. And I'll kill their creature so it can't block. And attack, and I'm on lethal next turn. No matter what, pretty much. Unless they kill one of my flowers. Oh, it's still lethal then. Alright, they need 2 removal spells, or a creature removal spell. Okay, so that's game 1. What do I expect mono red to bring against me? They're probably going to bring in Blazing Volley. I don't like Suffocating Fumes against this deck. I do like Grasp. I do like Boot Nipper. I don't really like Striped Riverwinder. It doesn't really do what I want it to do. Libation is fine, but it's not really where I want to be. So I think I'm going to cut 1 Libation. And I could keep a Duress, just because they often hold cards that are interesting, but I feel like that's just a bad place to be going. I think I'll leave it like this. And now I've got 12 pieces of early removal, 12 pieces of early interaction, so I think that's pretty good. Okay, starting game 2, up a game against mono red, either Kiln Fiend or mono red Burn. I like this hand. I've got a 2-drop interaction and a Rager. The 2 Cadaver Imps are a little awkward given that I don't have double black yet, and I don't really like recurring Rager against a burn deck, but it'll be fine. My opponent has mulliganed once. Okay, I drew the Swamp on time, which is nice. I will kill the 2-drop if it's Burning Prophet or if it's Kiln Fiend. And then on 3 I'll play Rager, and then we'll see where it goes. I'm going to try and trade Rager if and when I can. Okay, so we're drawing a whole lot of air, but the Cadaver Imp should be good. We're going to take some damage there, that's fine though. And I'll play an island, and I'll try to trade. I'm, again, going to be forcing an attrition game. Hungry Flames is a really good card for them, as it allows them to force through damage at the same time as... that's awkward. At the same time as killing a creature of mine. Since I can't do anything for 2 mana, and I cannot recur Mire's Grasp, I will sit here. It's not worth attacking for 1 if my opponent has a second Hungry Flames. Thermo Alchemist is something I need to get off the board ASAP, but there's not much I can do at this moment. Yep. Hey, and they shoot me. This really makes me wish I had green for Life Goes On or something, but I really don't wish that at the same time. Okay. So next turn we'll deploy a bunch of things, and I'm effectively at 7. So this will be a little bit dangerous. I'll probably recur the Cadaver Imp for a Cadaver Imp, as I don't really want the Rager. I guess I'll take Wander in Death. It's not a great option for me. As you can see, I'm on 9 lands so far out of 15 cards. Yeah, I want the Cadaver Imp. Goes down to 7. And pass. This was a good draw by my opponent. I can still get out of this pretty easily. I need to draw like a Moment of Craving and a Cruelty or something like that. Ideally, I need to actually get my Oracle killed and then recur it for value. Royal Eruption, okay. Yeah, just going to the face. So I think that this is actually Burn and not Kiln Fiend, which is useful for me to look at for the future. So I'm trying to find something, anything, and that is not a card. We'll cycle both of them. So I might actually take a Wandering Death out. Okay, I am theoretically dead here, which is unfortunate. I don't think that there's any realistic way that I can win here. I'll recur this and then pass, I guess, just because there's nothing I can do. And then I'll go to 1, and I have to draw something and have my opponent brick for 2 draw steps, which is highly unlikely. My deck is laughing at me. Okay. I will play this, and then I'll just let him kill me. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. So we drew like 10 lands, 11 lands. If I know my opponent is on burn, would I make any different decisions? I would consider cutting Riverwinder, and I'd consider bringing in Duresses, I guess. Maybe 2 Duresses. I don't think I want Wandering Death. I would cut 1 Rager, maybe. Rager's better on the play. I think this is fine-ish. It's really about mounting a decent starting point and then working from there. I feel like I should be I should be a favorite in this, but at the same time, there are definitely draws that my opponent can have that will pressure me. So given that we didn't see Kiln Fiend in the first 2 games, I think it's unlikely that Kiln Fiend is there. So I will play accordingly at this point. I get to be on the play. This hand is a little awkward, but it's fine. I'll Duress on turn 2, followed by Mire's Grasp to kill the creature, followed by Libation to kill the creature. I'm going to play like a control deck for a little bit. And I'll see where it goes. Okay, so my opponent doesn't have anything, and I get some information. Okay, I really don't like... I think Hungry Flames is the place I want to be going. Yeah, the other cards don't really matter. And then I'll play a second tapped lands, prioritizing the lands that actually have to come into play tapped versus the one that might not, assuming that I drew 3 islands in a row or something like that. Okay. I can afford to do this here because I know that I'm just going to Libation their next creature. Okay, and there's no lands. I'll play this, and I think what I'll do, yeah, my opponent's fishing for lands, is I'll probably Rager and then leave up Moment. I want to be recurring Moment in this matchup, obviously, as that gives me a lot of value generally. So, looking for a land. This is where Rager is great, when I'm at 20 life and I'm very stable, as opposed to when I'm at 2 life and I draw 4 Ragers, or gradually draw 4 Ragers over the course of the game. So, I think this is probably the toughest match that I can have for this deck, as it goes very wide over some of the other decks. Okay, my opponent is smart and gets to exile that. However, it's gonna be nice when I get to recur Salvager. Ooh, good old Boot Nipper. I think I'm just going to play Salvager for value here to make the best use of my mana, and then my opponent has to have spells. I'll take something that actually kills one of their creatures. I think that's probably the safer play. I'm not going to get burned out from 20. This is not Legacy. So my opponent probably will kill the Salvager, which means that I actually get to deploy everything that I could possibly want in the next turn. Okay, or not, that's fine. I'm just going to draw a couple cards and keep deploying to the board. This deck is meant to snowball, so that's what I should be doing. I think I'm probably just going to offer the trade where I moment of craving it. but we will see. Yeah, I think I'm just going to keep snowballing here, and I'll block. If I need to chump, I'll chump. I actually just want lands. I know that sounds crazy, but... Oh, I guess I've already played one for the turn. That's fine. My opponent's just trading. Okay, gets a dwarf. That's fine. I'm just going to attack for 4. I don't see a need to send in Seagate at this point. My opponent can check out Bootnipper, and I'll give it lifelink, obviously. Gain a life there. Go get Seagate Oracle, and that is that. I don't know what they can, like, unless they actually draw Kiln Fiend, in which case we have 3 removal spells for it. I can't see how they get out of this, as I'm ahead on life, cards, and everything else. This time I will attack with Seagate Oracle, because I don't see a point not to. Sure, my opponent tries to slow down the life gain, but this puts them dead in 2, so... Okay. Not quite 2 anymore. And end step, I will kill their creature with one of my removal spells, just to ensure that it's lethal. Or to force them to use even more removal spells. Okay, that is match 1. Okay. Back again for match 2. My opponent will be on a new deck, and I'm running back the same one, as I'm trying to knock out my opponent's mono-black control deck. I think that this deck has a slightly better matchup, or possibly a much better matchup than my usual blue-black control deck. Just because this one is better at going wide and less dependent on actually establishing control. If my opponent is, my opponent is saving blue-black control in that, or mono-black control in that case. Okay, so this is the... I think I'd rather just send for 1 here. This allows me to develop my mana a little bit smoother, and perfect. I have the perfect turn 4 now. And one thing, ooh. Oh right, this deck does this and plays enchantments. That's fine. Okay, so I will actually take a turn to kill this. My opponent might have some type of trick. But no, okay. Okay, I've played against this deck before. It's interesting, but I don't think it's really where the archetype wants to be. And I'm just going to kind of nickel and dime in here, because that's what this deck is really good at. This deck is a black-white life gain rush deck. My opponent has Dauntless Unity, so I'd rather kill the lifelink card. Now my opponent will Dauntless Unity with Kicker. Oh. Interesting. Alright, well, that's fine. I will sit here for a little bit and then Suffocating Fumes my opponent. That's one reason that I don't really like this deck, that it's a little too easy. They've got Basari's Acolyte and a few other things. It's generally an interesting deck, but I don't think it's quite good enough in this format when Suffocating Fumes is a 4 of in every single deck that plays black. I think it's pretty risky to be playing it. Alright, my opponent is on a lot of lands, on 6 lands. If they attack, then I've got trades. As is, I just want to actually wait. I want to be attacking, so let's get rid of my Rager. Maybe I should have done it the other way, actually, because I'm considering Cadaverine. How about this? Let's see what happens. Okay, well, I killed all their creatures. That's what happened. I was worried that there was going to be a 2-mana Unkicked Dauntless Unity to counter that. So I'm on 6 permanents here. And go up to 7. Grab the Rager. Play a land. This is 7, 10. We'll draw 3. And I will attack for 2 here. Acolyte, okay. I'll take the 4, that's fine. And then I'll exile it on my turn as part of my things that I do. Make sure they can't recur anything. I like Acolyte a lot, by the way. I think that it's a very underrated card right now in Pauper. And it's a card that I especially like in momentary blink decks. Okay, I'll take 2. I'm not really worried about this deck going over the top the same way I would worry about Burn. So I'm just going to continue attacking whenever I can. And this time I have Moment of Craving in case my opponent tries another play like that. I think they just have to sit back here. There's just too many creatures. Well, I will 100% block and trade my Phyrexian Rager for the Acolyte. And I will trade there. I think that that's fine, trading a Cruelty for a moment. Let's see, do I have any creatures left? I have 1 creature, so in that case, let's just attack. Now I have 2 creatures. Oh, sorry, we're in combat still. And I'll just play the tapped land. Okay, should have this one in the bag here. Alright, so obviously Suffocating Fumes comes in. Riverwinder is not great. Neither is Libation. I don't mind Mire's Grasp because of what my opponent is trying to do with what are those things called? Actually, I'm going to leave 1 Libation. I'm going to leave a Feed the Swarm in, because it'll kill a token if it gets the first striker. I'm also going to... What did I say? Oh, I was worried about the Cartouche. Just because first strike is actually very hard to deal with, and I need a certain amount of hard removal, especially if an X4 gets first strike. Alright. Game 2. Game 2, match 2. I'm up 1 match to 0. And I've not shown my opponent any decks yet. This is fine. I'm laying a lot on this. I'm probably going to cycle the Serpent on turn 1, just because my opponent mulliganed. Okay. And then I'll cycle at the end of their turn, just because the Serpent is actually really bad here. But I kept it in. It's very good in the late game, but we're not in the late game yet. Okay, so I have 2 Suffocating Fumes. That will be great later. Yep. If my opponent deploys anything on this turn that I can kill with Fumes, then I'm going to do it. Instead, I'll just take the time to kill that, as that's a really annoying card for this deck to deal with. And I expect that on my next turn I can Fumes, I can rebuy Cruelty, and I can Fumes again, and it should be good. The only card I'm theoretically worried about here is Ill-Gotten Inheritance, but I don't think that's something that I should seriously be worrying about. Let's see, my opponent does not have anything. Because they don't have anything, I actually just want to cast this now. It costs me a point of life, but if they have a counter spell, so to speak, like that, it doesn't affect the board at all for me. Okay, if my opponent doesn't have anything here, then I'm just going to deploy this and rebuy. Again, I'm drawing a lot of lands, but I'll see if I can dig out. I'll get Cruelty and make it look like, oh, I'm going to kill their creature that actually can. This is going to be good. Assuming I'm not dead here. I'm dead to another Unity, unfortunately. But them's the breaks. Okay, I'm not dead to Acolyte, but Acolyte is really powerful here. This is difficult. I take 6, I go to 5. On my next turn, I Fumes. This was a rush that made it very difficult, but we'll see if we can escape here. I think if I survive this next turn with any reasonable position, then it should be okay. Sure. We'll do this. If my opponent has something, they have something, and I'm dead. I was always dead if they had something here. Subtle Strike. Okay. I'm gonna take this moment then to kill, I think, the Acolyte. So I go to 2. Which is awkward, but not unmanageable. I'm going to go to 1 here, and oh, I'm actually dead. Ooh, pity. This actually needed to be something else, so I'm exactly dead. I forgot that each one of these had counters on it. Oh well. Okay. Alright, going to game 3 here of match 2. The sweep, the dream of the sweep is still alive. I generally like everything that I'm playing. I don't think that there's anything that I would like not to play. I just kind of got swarmed out there. And I need to have more little creatures. Maybe I should be playing a Boot Nipper over a Riverwinder, but I don't mind the Riverwinder later because it's actually an answer, a hard answer to a giant first striking creature. Given them on the play, that should be fine. My opponent is mulliganing. It was actually a very nice mulligan to 6. They really were firing on all cylinders there. I'm going to play Bog first, because I'm going to need double black at some point. And then I'm going to plan to play Cloudseer on 3, possibly Fumes. We'll see. Gloom Hunter, alright, sure. That's fine. I'm not going to trade for Gloom Hunter, just because I would rather race and play my own little creatures. Also, Gloom Hunter will die to the Seer. I do have to be aware of Acolyte, as the counters really stack up in a way that isn't good for me. Alright, my opponent is doing Subtle Strike. That's fine. My next turn will be spent rebuying that creature then. Play an island, pass. My opponent deploys something, I will Suffocating Fumes on their turn, probably. Solid. The lifelink's a little bit annoying, but I don't think I really want to do anything here. I just want to play creatures and trade. Now I'll actually trade the Seer for the Gloom Hunter. And then I'll trade the ground creatures for... we're going that way. That's fine. If that's the case, I'll just trade my new ground army for the Reaver, or the Thallid, sorry. Trade the Reaver and its zombie for the Thallid. Cool. Looks like my opponent is chill with that trade. And they'll bog me. Okay. I'm just going to take this moment to kill the Gloom Hunter. Feat of Resistance. Wow, okay. That's very nice. Okay, there's no way I can race here. I'm going to have to Suffocating Fumes. I made a mistake, I think, last turn. Actually, do I want this? Here, I'll just block like this. Make it... It's a weird set of plays, but it is what it is. I'll Fumes on my turn and trade for some of the ground guys, as needed. Okay, so I still have access to that. And it looks like if I actually do this turn, that it lines up better. Because I can't kill my opponent's creature. I won't attack. And then I'll Fumes on their turn, probably in response to a Dauntless Unity. So now we'll trade. This is like a little more trading than I wanted, but it's fine. And then there's an interesting line. Not sure, quite sure why my opponent did that. Okay. Still trying to go to the air, but that doesn't work. Kill the Gloom Hunter. Properly this time. And I'll pass, as I can't afford to take any damage against the 35 life that my opponent has. We'll begin chipping away next turn with Salvager going low. Last gasp, take 3. That's rough. That was a very good draw. I think I'm not going to do anything here. I'm just going to attack for 3. My opponent is bound to brick out, as they've only drawn 5 lands so far. I'm going to keep playing lands because I have a lot of card draw spells. I want to be able to snowball if I actually hit a card draw card. Yep, that's what I was afraid of, and that's why I was holding back creatures. Oh wow, that's really good. I'll kill a soldier, doesn't really matter. Yeah, and I'm just absolutely bricking out here, but that's what it is. So I'll put that back on top and pass, and if I'm dead, I'm dead. That'll be unfortunate. I'll kill the sapperling. It insulted me. Okay. Solid. I drew that. Problem is I can't take one. This is really awkward. Maybe I actually should cycle this. I should just... Maybe I should have. That might have been better. Like 40 cards. Oh well. It is what it is. Is it better to? At this point I don't have a choice. So I'm locked into casting this, unfortunately. And then I'm still forced to draw something. Wow. I didn't expect that I would be the one who lost on this. Alright. Fair enough. I don't mind playing against this deck. Oh. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is action. I'm going to get Salvager and Reaper for right now. Just to deploy maximum amounts of cards here. And this will get back Wander in Death, and next turn I'll be wandering some more. Okay. Back in the driver's seat. 1 life, 28 life. Let's do this. I don't think my opponent has any direct damage, so... We shall see. Game 3, match 2. Can we get the sweep? Ah, that's what we want. Okay. Let's draw 3 cards, first and foremost. Get some more things that'll help me. I'm going to gain a life, just so something weird doesn't kill me. And then start drawing cards. Cadaver and one of those. That second one of these. Okay, I can't imagine what they'd have, so I'm going to take a risk and attack for 2 here, as I do need to not give them a million turns to deploy a really, really wide army. Audacious Thief, okay. I don't understand what my opponent is doing, but that is fine. Okay. And I'll go grab secrets. I can kill this. Okay. I need to play around... Okay, so I have no instant speed removal, but I can play around... No point in not playing around it. So, this also gives me multiple colors. I think this is fine. It doesn't change the clock. I think the clock is still 2 more turns, roughly. Okay, I can't really play Rager, but I will take that. And then I'll gain another life and go for 3. Now I can really commit. I almost want to kill this and then recur it, but I think that's like a little too greedy. Okay, let's go. So now we're up 2 matches to none, and my opponent is probably on mono black control for the last match. Okay, here we are for all the marbles. I need to score 1 match win off of what is probably going to be mono black control. 1 second, let me confirm. I hope I did that right in the second match. I can't remember, honestly. This hand is pretty bad. So I'm going to mulligan as well as my opponent. Okay. This hand is also pretty bad, but I'm going to keep it because I don't have anything better to do. My opponent is on a double mulligan and appears to be on mono black, as expected. This is what we were trying to hunt for. Okay. Based on prior games, my opponent is expected to have about approximately 2 suffocating fumes in the main deck. So I'm going to try to play around that a little bit with Cloudkin Seer not coming out immediately. Alright, I have to raise this thing. Ah, yes. Well, never mind. Forget about that. We're just going to have to jam it. Okay, I'll deploy. Attack for 2. I forgot I have to race Ill-Gotten Inheritance. Okay. Again, I'll just attack. I think I'd rather be on the ground than the air. I'm going to play the Sanctuary here because on my next turn I want to play 2 3s. I probably want to play Secrets for 3 and then Rager. Okay. If my opponent has it, I'm willing to give them a kill here. They don't. They have no removal at all. This is interesting. I have to hope that they don't draw suffocating fumes, but that's unlikely. Yeah, this matchup doesn't even feel fair for mono black. I definitely want to be playing this side of it. And then they play Reaper, and I don't actually care. I'm going to kill the Reaper, and then continue attacking. I'm overcommitting a little bit, but I think it's fine. Yeah, to be fair, my opponent was on a double mulligan, I was on a single mulligan, but at the same time, I think this deck is going to snowball out of control far too often for mono black to deal with. Okay, and my opponent is dead on board, but we'll make sure that they're actually dead on board. Yeah, and that guarantees it's a kill. In spite of any removal spells. I think it was probably lethal regardless, but I think they could have had Moment of Craving before. Now they can't. Alright. So, playing against mono black, I definitely want the River Winders in. Definitely want Wander in Death. Definitely want Feed the Swarm. Or probably want Feed the Swarm. I don't think I want Boot Nipper. Cruelty is good. Moment is very bad. 3 Wander in Death is a lot, though. I think I'll actually cut it down. I'll leave it at 2. I don't know what I want the third one for, but I feel like at some point I'm going to. Suffocating Fumes is bad. I think this is where I want to be. I might want one more Feed the Swarm, but I think this is okay. Really, Feed the Swarm is just for Ill-Gotten Inheritance. Alright. Here it is. That is the easiest mulligan I've ever seen. Alright, so we're on no lands. My opponent is mulligan as well. This hand is very questionable. I'm gonna ditch the Wandering Death. I need the Wandering Death in case it comes down to creatures, so I will play Mystic Sanctuary in my first turn. Yeah, they duress me, that's fine. I think that's kind of dubious to bring in duresses against this deck. I think it's because it's good against the other deck, and it's not good against this one, because this one actually has 20, 25 creatures, and the other deck has 7 creatures, so there's a much higher spell count there. I'm not going to cycle Wandering Death now, as I think we just want to be sitting here. And I hit a swamp, and I will start playing the Parade of Value creatures to attack. I do expect that my opponent's going to have a lot of Suffocating Fumes, though, so I should be careful. And yes, I will block. I don't mind the 2-for-1 if Suffocating Fumes is the card that my opponent has. I'll just restock with whatever things that I can play. I think I'm just going to do it this way. I could play more into that, but I'm not ready to commit. My opponent's on 3 cards. I like Duress. Yeah, you actually got this Duress art for winning a Pauper challenge. I'm pretty sure a while back. Ah, interesting. I'd rather that they didn't have cards. I don't really care about removal. That's fine. Okay, so I'm just racing Ill-Gotten Inheritance in this deck, because I'm the one who's the beatdown. My opponent Memory Leaks me, takes Wandering Death, because there's nothing else you can do here, and I'm going to deploy as though they don't have Suffocating Fumes, I think. Oh. Really? They take Cloudkins here? I don't think I agree with that, but my opponent cycles Suffocating Fumes. Well, if there's ever a sign that I needed to play Cloudkins here, that's a sign. Play a land, go to attacks. I can get in an extra point of damage if I want. And I think I do. Every point matters in this race, and I don't think my opponent is suddenly going to start attacking, as I'm always going to have something to fight them with. They duress me. I'm going to cycle this, because they're just going to take it anyway, and if I hit a non-spell card, they just blank. That's one of the reasons I don't like duress, especially in this matchup. Okay, so now they Reaper me, and I discard the 2 cards that matter the least, because Cadaver Imp will just rebuy one of them, and I will continue attacking. Okay, block 1, take 5. My opponent is 1 mana away from Reaper. Reaper does gum things up nicely, but I still think that I can race Reaper. Oh, okay, so they have a second Reaper to make me discard. Which is fine. I got lucky there. Drew another one of these imps. I don't think you can, like, I think that my opponent underrated Fumes against me. But, I mean, I'm pretty in trouble to Fumes right now if my opponent draws it. Ah, more Cadaver Imps. Alright, so I'll attack. My opponent draws a card, which puts them further away from Reaper, but gets them closer to Suffocating Fumes, which they need. My opponent is just all in on Fumes. That doesn't seem wise. Yeah, you've got to trade. Okay. Critical turn. I don't think I have lethal. Oh, I do have lethal. Oh, I don't. I'm one short. Okay. I'm just going to draw all my Cadaver Imps and get a guy on the ground. Alright. I think this one is wrapped up, short of a Suffocating Fumes or something like that. I don't think my opponent has enough life to survive this. We're not going to grandstand, we're just going to go in for the kill here. Okay, good games. I think this was an interesting way of running a match, and it was really fun playing in the Plague League seasonal tournament, and I'm looking forward to playing in the next one, which is going to start on December 2nd. Although I know this probably won't be posted for a couple of days. Thank you to Zorks for the games, and I expect that I'll be playing against Zorks again in the next playoffs, just based on past experience. So anyway, until next time, I will include the other lists that I was going to play in the description down below.